This graph tracks the depreciation of vintage compact cameras from 2005. You can see prices falling steadily for a decade, staying flat, and then taking a sharp hockey stick spike upward starting in 2020. That modern-day axis is where we find Gen Z buyers paying upwards of $200 for a 20-year-old point-and-shoot, driven almost entirely by the pursuit of the vintage CCD sensor aesthetic. The Canon Digital IXUS I Zoom, also known in North America as the PowerShot SD40, sits right at the center of this resurgence. Back in 2005, it launched as a $400 premium lifestyle accessory. People are paying a premium today because they want this exact look: high contrast, heavy saturation, and that slightly noisy bright flash indoor party aesthetic, all generated naturally in camera without touching a smartphone filter app. But dropping $200 on a 2-decade-old ultra-compact forces a very practical question. Are you buying a brilliant stylistic tool or a logistical nightmare? To find out, we have to look past the social media hype. We need to evaluate the actual day-to-day friction of keeping the IXUS iZoom alive and shooting in the modern world to see if the aesthetic is worth the effort. This effort versus impact quadrant chart maps out the camera's features. We can plot its tiny 5-megapixel CCD sensor and slow f3.2 lens firmly in the low-effort, high-impact corner. That hardware pairs with Canon's in-camera My Colors processing engine. If you're shooting outside in bright daylight, you effortlessly get those highly saturated, unmistakably retro photographs. But take the camera out of that perfect daylight, and the hardware struggles. The shadows immediately fill with noise, meaning indoor photography requires total reliance on the built-in flash. And relying on that flash introduces immediate friction. You're forced to wait an agonizing 4.6 seconds for the flash to recycle between shots. With a maximum ISO of just 400, there is zero safety net for capturing ambient light. The hardware delivers the exact retro aesthetic you're paying for, but it demands you restrict yourself to sunny days, or that you have the immense patience required to shoot slow, flash-only portraits indoors. The physical appeal of the IXUS iZoom is rooted in what Canon called the Perpetual Curve design. The magnesium alloy chassis is built completely free of sharp corners or hard edges. Canon designed the body to be smaller than a pack of cigarettes, ensuring it functioned as a fashion accessory that happened to take photos. That size comes at the direct expense of usability. You are framing your shots on a tiny 1.8-inch screen that washes out completely in bright sunlight, while navigating through a highly cramped interface. Returning to our effort versus impact chart, we have to place the camera's D-pad zoom heavily into the high-effort, low-impact quadrant. Instead of a standard zoom ring or lever, you're forced to punch the rear directional pad to operate the optical zoom. The metal chassis succeeds perfectly as a pocketable accessory, but those physical controls actively fight you, making it incredibly difficult to frame a shot quickly or capture a spontaneous moment. Shrinking the camera down to that ultra-slim profile required a massive compromise in power. The IXUS iZoom relies on a microscopic 760 mAh battery called the NB4L. Looking at our chart again, that battery life gets pushed into the absolute extreme corner of high effort and low impact. It dies in under 190 shots, and it frequently does so without any reliable low battery warning. Canon also stripped away every port on the camera body to maintain that seamless look. All of your input and output connections are offloaded to a proprietary physical dock, the CS-DC1. For a modern user, this is a heavy travel burden. You can't just plug in a USB-C cable. To charge the battery or transfer photos to a laptop, you have to pack and carry that specific, clunky charging station everywhere you go. It's a sleek, highly portable camera for your pocket, but keeping it alive means chaining yourself to a highly immobile proprietary charging station. The IXUS iZoom represents the extreme edge of 2005-era miniaturization, where design first collided with the physical limits of battery and sensor technology. This decision flowchart starts with a simple question to determine if the trade-offs are worth your money. What is your primary goal for buying a vintage camera? Let's follow the first path, built for the aesthetic and party accessory buyer. Accepting this means extra batteries, managing the proprietary dock, and shooting strictly in daylight or with flash. If so, the verdict is buy for authentic, stylized, nostalgic photos. Now let's trace the second path for the everyday carry photographer. You need instant startup, responsive zoom controls, and reliable indoor shooting without blinding people with a flash. For this group, the verdict is avoid. The clumsy D-pad, dead batteries, and terrible autofocus guarantee missed shots. If you fall into that second group, you're better off finding a modern premium compact. Or, if you want that retro feel, look for an older Canon A series. They are slightly thicker, but they use standard AA batteries and physical dials that actually make sense. The IXUS iZoom is difficult to use as a primary camera, but it serves as a precise specimen of mid-2000s design. If you can fully accept the logistical hurdles, it produces the exact vintage